Nirtaki podcast.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a conversation with Guru Chitra Vishweshwaran on the occasion of her 75th birthday. If one took the ingredients of ballet, theatre, lighting, literature, music, history, philosophy, Manipuri, Kathak, Bharatanatyam, and added a huge dollop of curiosity and infectious zest, you get Chitra Padmanabhan Vishweshwaran. Her feet, mind, body, and spirit seem to be always on the move, ideating, creating, questioning, discovering. There are some, I think, who are born to dance, to discover the joy of the body in play, the urge to move in rhythm even when the music is not heard. Chitra is certainly one of those women who has given her chosen field of Bharatanatyam a fresh patina from the 1970s when she first flashed onto the sedate dance world in then Madras. Her early life was nomadic in many ways, beginning in London as a 5-year-old student of ballet and then eventually moving to Kolkata, where Rabindranatya and Sangeet, theatre, literature, and poetry became the scaffolding for her later Bharatanatyam dance visions. Chitra has the early seeding of an interdisciplinary mosaic that was to become a significant hallmark of her now branded Vichitra Bani. A curious mind with the kinetic imprint of Bharatanatyam, taught by the hereditary artist T.A. Rajalakshmi and later with the legendary guru Varuvu Ramaya Pillai, Varuvurar in Madras, Chitra's personality always caught the eye of her teachers, but not always the praise from dance critics. Through the many waves and undercurrents of life's tugs and pulls, Chitra Vishweshwaran at 75 stands quietly, strong, firm, and stoic, convinced of her place in dance history and living a full life outside the digital world. In our conversation today, we will discuss the public and private side of Chitra Vishweshwaran's life, the struggles and challenges faced off stage, not known to the public, of triumph and loss of a life fully lived, and after the stage lights are switched off and the applause dies. Welcome, Chitra.
Thank you for having me here.
I want you to take us back to that 5-year-old in London entering ballet class for the first time.
Interesting memories. I think what I really learned was discipline. The, the discipline in ballet classes is a very strong part of it. So it wasn't that you just go 5 minutes, 10 minutes late and leave uh, before the class is done. It was never missing classes. You had to be very disciplined. And it helped because my parents were very disciplined people. So when I was put into a genre which was in itself inculcating discipline, my earliest memories are of that discipline. Even discipline in walking. We used to have about 3-inch markings along the hall, and the piano teacher would play the piano, and we would walk on that to rhythm and music. So the music seeped into you even then. You learned to respond to music even when you moved. And in order for you to maintain your core and develop a beautiful gait, books would be kept on our head. and we had to balance it as we went around. These are little things which I still use in my teaching nowadays,
Okay.
much later. And another thing which I remember is the leaps to fly, and I always wanted to fly, and that spirit I have taken with me. But when I look at it, I look at the life which has come up later. I don't know whether that little girl was ever aware what a tough journey life could provide if you really wanted to rise with focus in a chosen
Field.
field.
Well, finally, your family moved to Kolkata. Your
Yes.
father was in the Indian Railways.
Yes.
And an interesting sidebar is that her mother, Rukmini, wanted her to learn dance, and she went to Ram Gopal.
The one and
And
only.
Ram Gopal said, I don't teach young girls, I'll teach you. So, so there was this very focused mother. So we come to Kolkata, you have access to so many other forms like Manipuri and Kathak, and of course, what Kolkata offers culturally. So why Bharatanatyam?
We didn't get to Bharatanatyam as soon as we landed in Calcutta. Kolkata, as we call it now. Those days it was very British Calcutta still. There was no Bharatanatyam teacher that we knew of. So I learned Rabindra Nritya, Kathak, and Manipuri in a school called Shurotirtha. And Rabindra Nritya I learned from someone called Ramadi. I didn't know her surname. I don't know. It was just knew her first name. So I had been learning these three forms of dance when someone told my mother that there's a two wonderful Bharatanatyam teachers in Kolkata, and they belong to the Rajarajeshwari Parampara of Guru Kuppaya Pillai of Tiruvadaimarthoor. But they had not learnt from him in Bombay in the institution, but in Tiruvadaimarthoor. One teacher was Mardappa Pillai, Kuppaya Tata's own son. He was older than Kalyana Sundaram Pillai, um, who's now so famous, and he was with him in Tiruraimarthoor. And my guru, Srimati T.A. Rajalakshmi, was uh, a Devadasi, and she was his Kupeya Tata's Prathama Shishya. Even today, the family tells me, you know, he was always partial towards her because she danced so beautifully, but she was always partial. And we always felt that wasn't fair. She is the Prathama Shishya, we are the kids.
So she happened to be in Calcutta at that time.
She happened to be in Calcutta. This was a big, I think it was a blessing for everyone that the Tagore family wanted to start Bharatanatyam classes in Kolkata. And they had requested Aryakudi Ramanujayengar to check out and send a very, very good teacher. And he sent T.A. Rajalakshmi to Kolkata. And when I think of it now, she didn't know any language but Tamil. And she was very much in a small village like Tiruvadaimarthoor. She's virtually uprooted from the environment she was used to, and she was sent to Kolkata, which was so different in culture. But I must say, the women of that community are very strong, very, very strong and courageous. And that made her relocate and establish a little kingdom of her own. So, most of the good dancers from Kolkata have either learned from her or from Mardappa Pillai.
So how old were you when you started
When I
with
started learning from her, I was 10. And classes were very interesting. Early in the morning, 5:30, and my father would come with his bundle of railway files, drive me, and sit outside the class in the car signing his files and reading his files. And I would go inside a room which was very small and which had a big pillar in the center. And around this pillar, clothes would be drying. So you really had to learn to maneuver everything. But if class was at 5:30, she would be ready at 5:15. This sort of discipline. And she was a very strict teacher, very, very strict teacher. It was wonderful to learn from her. It was wonderful.
And then when you got the scholarship and moved to then Madras to learn with Varuvu Ramya Pillai, the iconic Varuvurar, how was that transition? And let's talk about the teaching first, and then I'll talk about the culture shock that Madras was for you.
Yes, because I learned under Rajalakshmi teacher for 10 years. And within 1 year of my joining her, within 10 months, she proposed the Arangetram.
10 months.
10 months.
Okay.
And so she must have proposed it when it was 9 months or 8 months. And my parents were petrified, especially my father, because I had this habit of whenever there was a little function in Trichy Seva Sangam, say where my grandmother was involved in it, or some other little club, they would say baby Chitra dances on a blackboard. Baby Chitra would come there and say, I won't dance. Was well known for it. My mother tried all sorts of things, having new pavada stitch, new jewelry, dance. Please don't come and let us dance. But I would invariably, that was one constant. Baby Chitra would never dance. So when teacher said, we used to say teacher those days.
Yes.
Teacher said she must have her Arangetram, she's ready for it. My father said, if I arrange everything and baby Chitra says I won't dance, what will we do? So my mother said, no, I think I can slowly convince her and make her do it. And that day I remember there was a ball of fear within my heart before I went onto stage. But the moment I heard the music, I never turned back. And I think the stage has become my natural habitat.
I think so too.
And
Now,
when-
and now come to Chennai.
yes,
No.
Chennai,
Madras.
yes, Madras. Then Madras, 1970. I had just finished my graduation. It was a very, very different environment. First of all, you had this huge hall of in Baru Ramya Pillai's place. It had 4 pillars against this one pillar and quarter of the size that I was used to in Kolkata.
And classes were one on one.
Well, he had 4 students, and we all used to be there together. Together, but he would teach us like one to one. That's where I learned that skill. I can, you know, teach 4 people, but still make it sort of individually appropriate for each person. In fact, once when somebody came for a Vijayadashami function that was happening, they said these 4 people are doing the same dance, but each one is so original. How do you manage to do this? That was the skill of those teachers. There was never a factory line, never. You may learn the same item, but they tap and bring out the best in you. So it was a very different, very, very different atmosphere, learning. And it was as indisciplined as Rajalakshmi teacher was disciplined. Vadyar used to say, come to class at 8:30. So would rush and be there at 8:30, and my mother would accompany me all the time. Those days it was like that. So we'd go 8:30, and then we just wait, and then we'd wait, and then we'll wait, and then we'll wait. And then they tell us, uh, would come out of taking his shower, he would come. And then he used to have very interesting trunk about this size, about this high, in which he kept his puja.
Oh,
He never took his puja out of that because he always be traveling,
Traveling.
earlier. You remember the days of Kamala when they were
Yes.
always traveling. So it would be this trunk was his puja. And he always had that with him. And then he'd slowly sit down, he'd open it, and he'd start doing everything, putting the kumkumam and vibhuti, chandanam and everything. And then he'd be talking to us at that time. I think where I was very lucky is that I realized that was just not empty talk. Some instinct in me, whereas the others learning with me would say, வாத்தியார் எப்பவும் லேட் ஆகுது டைம் ரொம்ப வேஸ்ட் ஆகுது we are wasting so much time, we are not able to learn, what is this happening? But then I would just sit and listen, and how much the rich history of the parampara I came to know. Not many people that know that it was the Varur parampara that taught Kuntavi of the Chola dynasty. They didn't know. But he would trace that, he would tell us those things. He would give us more examples, instances. Dance was not separate from life. Life was dance, dance was life. And so we also developed that. If you had the focus, you developed that. So it was also very creative. With Raja Lakshmi teacher, it was grammar with feeling. There was no grammar without feeling those days. Nowadays we have grammar, grammar, grammar. But then we lose the essence and the feel, the spirit of a style. But she used to have the grammar intact, but she was she was an exceptional um, abhinaya artist. And she would never teach இந்த கை பண்ணு அடுத்தது இந்த கை பண்ணு அடுத்தது இது கேளு இது இப்படி never. She just dance and just sketchily she would just say a few things, and you imbibe the spirit more than you imbibe கை number 1, கை number 2. அது கிடையாது. Then so there was already a free flowing style which had been uh, not thrust upon me, but which had been instilled in me. And when I came to Varuvarar, he was he was a maverick in his days. He was absolutely, he was most unconventional. And people would say, this is not at all a pure style. I mean, who are we to talk about purity or impurity or whatever? Art should be beautiful. There, and he used to say that whatever is beautiful is good art. Let's not sit and on our high horses, get up on our high horses and make statements. And he would inspire one to look at beauty in everything. So it was free flowing, and then he'd tell me in the part "Ni kai putsinduva," and then I'd go home and
Do your homework.
do my homework. It's sometimes nowadays it's a little difficult to find dancers doing any homework
Yeah.
because they are so pressurized.
Yes,
There's
yes.
so much,
So he would ask you to internalize the lyric and then come
Yes.
back with the mudra.
And the internalizing was, he would have a talk, and then he would say, when we said, போயிட்டு வரேன் சார் நாங்க வரோம்னு, he'd say, think, think, think. We were saucy youngsters. Vadya knows one English word, think. And he goes on saying, think, think, think. But then when you think of it later, it's such a profound word. It's sort of, it combines meditation, it combines introspection, it combines search, research. There's so much that word, if you really want to focus and see what all layers of interpretation can happen. So that think. So it was, and sometimes we would have gone at 8:30 in the morning and would have stayed till 4:30 in the evening, not having our lunch, not having anything, but just listening to him speak. And then he used to have 2 huge Belgian mirrors, beautiful ones. And then he'd say, come and say, come and in the pose nulle. and it would be a one-legged pose.
Hmm.
Then you'd say, "Apne nindru,"
Hmm.
and he'd go for a round into his garden and everything, and come back, and you're starting, trying not to lose balance. But it was sort of a very,
Ah.
it wasn't easy, but it was something which was enjoyable. It wasn't military or regimental.
I remember Kamala, after a long jati,
Uh,
would just hold a pose.
yes,
And she would hold the pose.
yes, that is Vadyarapa. That's how it would be, and you had to, and that's how it give you practice.
Mm. Can I change tack here?
Yes,
1970, you're in Madras, and Western music draws you to meet your life companion.
yes.
Tell me how you met Vishwesh and what was the symphony that brought you together?
We both actually met at a wedding, at common friend's wedding. Then after that, where we really met was, I don't know whether you remember Dr. Jagadishan.
Yes, I do.
Dr. Jagadishan was a great connoisseur of music and had a big collection of Western classical uh, records, those days, the big ones.
Right.
And I used to go there to listen to those records. And Vishwesh used to come there to listen to the music. So what drew us together was Swan Lake.
Swan Lake. Okay.
So, so
So tell me about the challenges of being married to a musician and also working with him. Your life partner also becomes your working partner.
yes, sometimes you forget whether you're speaking to your husband or you're speaking to your musician. And usually, since we were with music and dance most of the time, it would be, in fact, people used to say, "Look at them fighting like cats and dogs." But then we never thought of it like that. He was a musician, I was a dancer. And it was lovely because we'd tap each one's creativity and we'd bluntly comment about each thing. And Vishwesh would go, and when I used to be touring so often, and Vishwesh was not singing for me at that time, just composing, he'd go around telling everybody in our society,
Ah.
"How is Chitra? Oh, we only meet at airports and stations." Quite a scandalous statement those days.
Have you had moments when something quite didn't quite work on stage and you just were like some infuriating moments where you had some and then
Yes,
you brought that back off stage?
uh, it was what was backstage with came on stage. It was that way. Because, I still remember in Zurich, there was a performance.
Oh.
You know that museum?
Yes,
That,
the Indian Museum in
yeah,
English, yes. Reitberg.
right.
Reitberg.
Yes.
Yes.
And we would be a small group. Ratavanar, Vishesh vocal, uh, and Mridangam, I'm flute.
Hmm.
அவ்வளவுதான். No technician, no assistants, no dancers, nothing. So I still remember I had to go on stage and Vishwesh was singing. I said, "I am not able to wear my belt. Will you please tie it?" He was singing and jolly in his own world. I said, "What is the meaning of this? You're married to a dancer. You don't even know how to tie the belt of a dancer." So he looked at me like that. Later on, I realized when he looked at me like that, it was given a chikaren, patakaran. But at that time, I didn't connect to it. And then he tied it, and then we went on stage. You wouldn't believe it, Anita. I did Krishnani Vegane Baro, where
Ah.
I, anyhow, would flow into Sanchari.
Ah.
And I would always tell whichever musician was there that this will be my cue. I will go on till then. So when I would look at their books to see what the cue was,
Hmm.
and I would just follow the cue, and the musician, including Seturaman, would only follow the cue, writing in the notebook. மழையா நேத்திக்கு 63 தடவை பண்ணா இன்னைக்கு 84 தடவை பண்றா மழையா கண்ணு திறந்து வச்சுக்கோ அதெல்லாம் I still have those notes with me. Yeah, when you saw the notes, isn't it? So, so And there, I finished the Sanchari. I looked politely at him, and he looked at the sky. And then I went round in a graceful turn around on the stage and said this. Is anyone looking from the back of my eyes like this? And then still looking somewhere else. And then finally he went on till I was drained of ideas, until I was in tears. And everybody said, beautiful how Yashoda cried when she saw the world in Krishna's open mouth. I was crying because he was hassling me.
You were the star, Chitra, in that combination marriage. So how did you balance the idea? Because they knew, we and the world knew you more than they knew your husband.
Yes.
So how did you balance that?
It's a very delicate situation. Reminds you of the film Abhiman.
Yes.
It's very, very delicate. And I think you need to give cognizance and you must respect the relationship. So what I would do was, see, he was a wonderful friend. He was a wonderful social animal, besides being a wonderful creative musician. So what I started doing was, when we meet in we'd go out and we'd meet friends, I'd take a back seat. I'd say, let him be the star in outside. And everyone used to say, Vishwesh is so friendly. Vishwesh is so good. And he is so humorous. This Chitra snooty. But that didn't matter. It kept our relationship going well, because being a dancer and musician, we'd also fight a lot, but we'd also agree a lot. We'd also enjoy a lot. We used to listen to all sorts of music together, enjoying it so much. Hindustani music, jazz, Western classical, baul music, folk music, classical. So, but that's how I maintain the balance.
So I remember, Chitra, that in the 70s, you looked different. You leapt onto the stage differently. You arrived, in a sense, that balletic leap you're talking
Yes.
about. But when I look at the way that the visual, you didn't have the full aharya, you didn't have the full talasaman. You had like a neti chutti. Your hair was not plaited tight with a lot of flowers. You had very simple jewelry, sometimes pearls or sometimes not even kempu. Yeah.
Very often not.
Very often not. So you looked very different. So somebody could say it a breath of fresh air. But what was some of the pushback that you received?
Yeah, there were people who did say, uh, she's not conventional. She's not following tradition. They won't say conventional. They just say she's not following tradition. Everyone is supposed to wear this. Who says all the supposes? Man makes these rules. There's nothing wrong in pushing. And all, when you look at the examples of great artists, not just in dance, uh, painters, sculptors, they've always pushed the bar. So I used to feel that, see, I've got a slight squarish jaw. That in the beginning, when people said, wear talasaman, I found that when I wore a talasaman, it was sort of, it enhanced,
It exaggerated
exaggerated it, and I didn't like it. And then I did find that too much jewelry never suits me. Even now, you see, I'll wear big earrings, but I never wear anything much otherwise, because that's what suits me. And I think it's very, very important that what you wear suits that particular individual. Just don't wear something because it's the done. Don't go with the herd. You shouldn't wear it because it's just the done thing. Then the second point is the expense involved in all these, in the jewels. I was a railway officer's daughter, and then I got married to Vishwesh, who was at that time still thinking of, do I finish chartered accountancy or go into music, and finally decided to become a accountant.
Okay.
And then went into music. So money was not flowing around. So it wasn't floating around. And I still remember in all my travels, and I used to travel to small places. Not nowadays, you only have performances in bigger metros, but tiny, even in North India and smaller places, and in Kashi and Burdwan and little places. And I used to keep going. I especially used to enjoy going to the Sundays of those places. Even Ooty and all, you
Yes,
have
yes.
Sundays.
Oh,
Then I'd find very, very beautiful jewelry. So I'd pick them up, and cheap, very
yeah.
cheap. In the exhibition, they had one particular jhumka of mine. I picked it up for 10 rupees and had it dipped. And that used to dangle from my ears for a long time. So I used to, and I like to be creative. And once you discover that taste, you're not happy just wearing a mahari kantu on the muttu. You want to combine it with, say, Maddalamani and recreate something which still has the spirit, but would be more flowy. I always wanted something which flowed.
So the audience, I think, welcomed you. I think the audience is far more intelligent than we give them credit for. But you had a lot of pushback from the dance critics.
Absolutely. And some days reading some of those reviews, uh, just for the past few months, Sukanya has been working on the archives, and she'd bring me some of the reviews. And I think, how did I still continue dancing?
Do you remember some of those caustic comments?
Uh, I don't know whether I remember, but I remember they were very, very caustic. And at that time, but then I learned one thing, how to get over it.
Mm.
See, once you're on the stage, you can't say everyone should keep their mouth shut. I will be on stage, I will do what I want, and everyone will must. They are doing their dharma, I'm doing my dharma.
Mm.
So in the beginning, it was sort of, especially, when Furno Hall had written about me, uh, even when I was a youngster. Uh, Furno Hall, for those of you who don't know, was a very leading British critic. He said, a young Bala Saraswati has been born.
Mm.
So I have received accolades like that, but I've also received brickbats left, right, and center. Then what do? I have to learn to accept them. I always took these as speed breakers.
Mm.
See, when you read something immediately, you're too close to it. So, yes, you're human. You're an artist. You will get hurt. How won't you get hurt? You can get hurt, but then put it away. I would put it away and after a few days read it again. And I try to see what is in it what is in my dance that has provoked that comment. And then I would analyze and see, and if I felt that it would improve my performance, I would accept it and do it.
Mm.
Otherwise, I wouldn't bother.
Mm.
Because if you bother about everything, you will give up before you begin.
So I have, and now I want to talk about the 70s and 80s, maybe even up to the 90s.
Mm.
You were touring relentlessly.
Yes.
Even in the season, I think you danced 20 days in the month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You really were. I don't think you had even like a one rest day, maybe one or two. And many of us would just marvel, like, she's dancing. We would look at the December calendar and you would be every single day.
Mm.
Then you would be in Europe, touring again, like
15 days, 14 performances.
yes, yeah, I know that. Yeah, that was the kind of you know pace that you were maintaining
Mm.
for many years.
Mm.
In all this, I want you to share with us one moving comment or something that one Rasika came up to you that was surprising. You may not even remember her name, but
You see, especially in Europe those days, you see, getting comments in India, good comments and appreciation, people know the art. But in Europe, uh, I was amongst one of the pioneers who performed so much. There were people who were already settled, like Ram Gopal, Rai, like Rajamani, and all of them already settled and teaching, producing dancers. But there was nobody like who was touring so much, traveling from town to town, climbing up and walking on the catwalks, adjusting lighting, uh, doing all that. But I remember very well somebody in France who came to my performance and said, I do not believe in Krishna. I do not believe in Yashoda. But when you portrayed Krishna, portrayed Yashoda looking at the world in the mouth of Krishna, I believed. And I think that is the most touching statement which has ever been made to me.
You talk about walking the rafters, adjusting lighting.
Yes.
Is this something that you picked up in Kolkata?
Well,
Your interest in lighting?
yes, my interest in lighting because Taposh Sen used to do all the lighting and I worked with him,
The great Tapasyan.
the great Taposh
Yes.
Sen. And, you don't have so many things now. You have all sorts of things. Parts, you have intelligence lights, you have specials, you have everything. But they used to work with very basic stuff. And they were so creative about it. So it is Taposh Sen's influence upon me.
I want to come to your collaboration with Sudharani and Padma
Ad-
Subramaniam, because that is, it's a very special trio that you were, although you're younger than them,
Yes.
but it was Padma, Sudha, Chitra, who sort of represented Bharatanatyam globally and definitely defined Chennai's, Madras's spirit of Bharatanatyam. You worked together in this famous Kuravanji,
Virali Malai Kuru.
Virali Malai Kuravanji, that was then toured in Russia and elsewhere,
Yeah. Middle East.
Middle East. What did you learn from that collaboration, observing these two amazing dancers, Sudha and Padma, very different from one another?
Absolutely. I was, in the beginning, I was very apprehensive because, they were my seniors and I did not literally belong to that age group. But one thing I realized is once I was included in that trio, they were very encouraging and very supportive. And it wasn't, there was no criticism. There was, come, let's do it that way. And it was actually a discussion amongst equals. So they were not on their high horses thinking they were more experienced, but they gave me equal uh, importance and would take my ideas and suggestions with great, I would say,
Openness.
openness, right?
So in the Kuravanji, Sudharani was the princess,
Yes.
royalty. You were her Sakhi, and when Padma Subramaniam Paduaka was the Kurati gypsy, right? The nomadic person. So I remember Sudha sharing with me experiences of the television taping
Oh, yes.
of that Kuravanji and what both of you learned
Learned.
by the way Padma
Padma
Subramaniam
danced.
handled the camera. Now share that with us.
You see, we had no experience of the camera. Whereas Padma Subramaniam comes from a family where the camera is one of the instruments and a tool in their very existence. And Padma had also worked behind the camera.
Yes.
So here we were. It was Kuruvanji being taped, commissioned by Doordarshan, and we were recording. Sudha and I doing and with full arutham and perspiring and looking awful. And Padma would just do she would dance with her face and her arm because if he should know from the camera that this camera is now shooting and that is not shooting. So now do my torso, now do my feet. It's such a skill. And we both learned that by observing Padma. So you see, there was this give and take. We were all prepared to learn from each other.
Yes, I remember like listening to Sudha when she was saying that to
Yeah.
say, now I know what to do. Now I know I will never get tired.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we used to look terrible at the end of a shot. It was looking so, we look so wet and sweaty. But then, when we saw one thing that Padma did, we just picked up and we decided we follow the same thing and learned. It was a lesson.
Let's switch the mood. I know we're going from something very positive, but I want to talk about the challenges of being the primary caregiver to your brother, Arun.
Yes.
He was a special child from age 3,
Yes.
and that's now almost 70 years
Yes.
of being a special person. First, your parents, and now you as the primary caregiver. What has that been like in terms of what it has taught you about humanity, and has it in any way touched your art?
Very much so. But first, what was my, because any of us can be thrown into a traumatic situation when one is young. I still remember he was born normal, and we had little sibling fights and everything till he was 3. And then he developed brain fever, lost his speech, and he remained a 3-year old. Till today, he remains to be a 3-year old, but physically a very well grown and a very handsome man. First of all, nowadays, every day I call him, "Who's handsome?" And he says, "None." Eh?
Mm.
So it's also you. I won't say that this sort of relationship was there when we were very young. We used to. There was sibling fighting going on all the time, but uh, I remember I grew up in Kolkata. And because I grew up in Kolkata, I have a lot of the Rabindraic influence upon me, where you see the cosmos as God and as the divine, rather. And you grew up on Vivekananda and Ramakrishna. So I used to think, yeah, I used to sit and pray and say, I'm praying now, and Kali will appear to me as she did to Ramakrishna. Imagine what ego that
Yeah.
Kali will appear to be. I think I was not yet in my teens, and I would say, and I would think, and Kali will ask me, "What do you want, Chitra?" And then I'll say, "I want Arun to speak." That went on for a couple of years. But then at the moment when I was 13, I realized it would never happen. Then it was a great shock for me. It was shock, it was trauma, and disbelief that this could be happening, and this question, why me? And I could ask that question. Now I realize it must have been there in him, but he couldn't ask because he was nonverbal. But then my mother taught me to how to handle him very beautifully. I think she awakened those instincts of a mother. Even when I was a child, I was taught how to look after him, how to take care of him. But then he was always, now when you think back, why would he pull my hair? Why would he hit me? Why would he beat me? Why? It was because he was uh, he was unable to do whatever I was doing. There is frustration in them too. But because of that, there was no enmity between us. Even if he uh, hit me or something, I never told my parents. And in fact, he do a lot of very wicked things. Like when he used to hear the key on the ground floor of a house in London, and my father coming in, he'd take all his toys out of his room and throw it in my room, and then sit quietly and smile when father would come. Then father would come to my room, a mess, and he'd say, "Munniyampare, look at the way you're keeping your room. So untidy, so messy. Look at Arun. He is so systematic, so neat." So there were little things that we also had the fun of, we'd play. I was the cook and he was the cook and I was the main sub. But then I would cook for the for the cook and he eat. So little humorous moments like that.
Did he enjoy watching you rehearse and he would attend your performances?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
There was a lot of anger in him.
Mm.
He wouldn't. He didn't come for my Arangetram. He didn't come for any performances. He didn't come for my wedding because he had started by that time becoming violent.
Mm.
See, it's violent born of adolescence.
Mm.
He was in the adolescent stage, and when everybody has problems, he could not express it. So he expressed it through violence. So we couldn't take him anywhere.
Mm.
But then I met Mata Jivatama, and she, I would say, made a man of a beast and now a god of a man. Because it has been such a beautiful journey, such a beautiful journey. He was he was he was in the Institute of Mental Health, a euphemism for the mental hospital, because he had become so violent. But then she went and saw him, and then she gave me palliatives in the form of herbal medication. She's in the Siddha Parampara of Agastya. So we made those medicines, gave it to him, and slowly he calmed down, he calmed down, and he calmed down. And all these attacks of epilepsy, which were 17 times a day, all slowly faded out. And so my mother passed away much earlier, in 1990. 97, he had calmed down quite a lot. And when I father passed away, I went and told the doctor. I said, I would like to take him home. He said, he has calmed down a lot. You can think about it. But one thing, now nobody knows that such rules are there. I believe once a person is admitted into the mental hospital, you cannot bring that person out without going to the court. They become property of the state. So the doctor told me by that time, because Appa was also very ill for the last 7 years of his life, and I had started taking care. They said, "You take him home, leave everything that he possesses over here. Don't come back here for 60 days. We'll report he's missing."
Oh.
So I put him into the car, brought him home. And then I told Vishwesh, but one thing was missing. I said there was no background music. See, if you develop the capacity to laugh about these things, you know how to look at the half full glass and not the half empty. And now he's so happy. He comes to our rehearsals. You've seen him in performances. I didn't bring him today because he doesn't talks very much, but he loves music, he loves dance. And Professor CVC used to say, you don't need a critic in the audience to tell you how the performance is. Look at Arun. If he loves it, he's rocking. And if he doesn't love it, he's a little bit bored. You'll see him pinching Chitra. If he hates it, he'll stamp on Chitra's foot. So he's so sensitive. He knows all my girls. He's so friendly. All my girls, my boys, my Abhay gang. He is very happy and friendly with everyone. And, he learns so many things from a person like him. I keep thinking how much patience. Here we get impatient for everything under the sun. This guy is so patient. He uh, he is in all sorts of pain, we know, but he doesn't complain. You learn not that we are privileged that we can complain, but he doesn't complain. Learn not to complain. And again, there is no differentiation between the rich and the poor, the He likes beautiful girls very much, by the way. But if it's a little child too, he will give a kiss to the child just as he would give it to an older person. There's nothing, he doesn't. Para paksham theriyaduntu they say, illa. Adu mari. And so I would say spiritually awakened and aware because he just sits in silence. What else is it but open eyed meditation, is what I very often feel. So I feel he has made me a better person by being with me. It's not that I am doing anything for him, he is doing. He has helped me on my spiritual journey. That's what.
Chitra, you've just been the architect of reviving one of your iconic works, Panchali.
Rajan.
Draupadi as a central character, the play written by Mahakavi Subramanya Bharatiyar. Now, when you first began the first iteration of Panchali, I was told that to be in the character, you were walking around your house and making your husband quite worried. So, just share some of that.
Yes, I never tied up my hair or plaited it for 2 months. And whenever anybody asks me a question, I'd say, what? Why should I do it? Very feminist questioning. I've always been a feminist, but I won't be outwardly strong about it. I live it. As a word, I don't need to say it, I live it. So I'd be very abrupt and very angry and very demanding and very questioning for everything. So I was going around the house like that all the time. Now, this time when we have revived it, I see in Sukanya, a Dushasana. I'm beginning to. I was, especially the last 15 days, I hesitated to talk to her because I didn't know when Dushasana would surface and Sukanya would.
So Vishwish decided to just leave you alone after that.
He just leave me alone. In fact, he developed one thing. You see, having been brought up in Calcutta, we have this cholbena thing with us, and we immediately question. We don't accept protest, and for everything. I still remember in the airport one day, some foreigners were allowed before us. I got so angry. I said, I'm going to tell them how dare they give them precedence over Indian citizens. We are Indian citizens and things like that. He said, yeah, go and do it. They do it. Yeah, there's a table there. Why don't you climb on that table? Then I'd become quiet. But if he said, don't do it, I would only do that. So he knew how to handle me, basically.
Tell us about Vichitra Bani, because your mannerisms, your style, you've just now sort of officially branded it. Yes?
Yes.
But there is a way in which we see a student of yours and you can tell this is Chitra Vishweshwaran student. So all those accents were your development of your style. Were you doing it even while you were with Varuvurar, or did it develop as you started teaching and performing? There were no dance classes with huge mirrors where you sort of looked at yourself and made those adjustments, right?
No, it just Varurar gave me the freedom of interpretation. And when he saw that I was light on my feet, he would encourage me to do big leaps and things. But that was about it. After that, though I was teaching from a very young age, I was only teaching youngsters. It wasn't as though I could develop the style on them. I developed the style on myself. And the sense, if you develop the sensibilities and you can see the best in everything, and there's no point saying, let's do a cut, copy, paste, which is what happens. There's a danger. You take something from Odissi, you take something from Kuchipudi, and then you try to put it together. It doesn't become an organic whole. You have to take the spirit of it. That's my experience. Maybe somebody else's experience may be different. Take the spirit of it, make it your own, and bring it out in your own interpretation. It wasn't just dance. It was any movement. It could be the movement of a leaf in nature. It could be the movement of the difference between the way a river flows and the ocean's waves leap. Because generally, I find what happens, no criticism meant, but it's just that we must look beyond the immediate. There would be uh, people doing this for an ocean, but I could never see the ocean. The ocean is wide. So why can't you just put your arms a little apart and do it? Why don't you connect with nature? Was always the point. And I think that's Ravindraism, you see, connecting with nature, which makes me think of myself as a boner pakhi, a pakhi, a bird that belongs to the forest, but yet it flies. And that's how I wanted the style to be. And so many other sources of inspiration, sculpture. And again, I didn't confine myself to Indian sculpture. I think because of my background. For instance, you talked about Panchali, iconic, you said. Uh, we worked with KPP
Yes,
on it.
Kutu Patre.
And
And they did the lighting.
yes,
Yes, for your early edition. Very interesting lighting was I saw the
that
performance.
performance,
Yes.
yes. Pashupati was one of those.
Yes.
The Pashupati
Yes.
was one of those working on lighting. Now, I was looking for a vocabulary for the body. How am I going to? I was not satisfied just having the Kauravas doing some particular hastas and mudras and saying they're the Kauravas, and the Pandavas looking at doing some hastas. And I said, beyond that, even a person not knowing the language should be able to identify. And that's when the inspiration of the Kutu movements inspired me to work on it and adapt it, not just cut, copy, paste, adapt it and make it an organic part of the characters. So here, and of course, red, whatever blue you want, you can use the lights. But how was I to depict the Pandavas? It's very difficult. Even to do the Pandavas roles is costs a lot of control, very controlled. How was I to show them in contrast? That is when the paintings of the Romantic period of Cezanne, where Van Gogh had stripped the canvas, the Dutch canvas of dark colors, and this entire movement in painting had come into being. So, and you could see the light filtering through the canvas. So that inspired me to use the lighting in that particular way. And when the Pandavas walk in, they are comparatively less evil. I won't say they're totally good, but still they were less evil. So what inspired me? It was not the sculpture of our temples, it was Greek sculpture. Because the way the man's body is held in Greek sculpture, that inspired me. And that is what helped me formulate a tool of communication through the body. So it's not just dance. It's not just nature. It can be uh, painting. It can be sculpture from anywhere in the world. Now, when you go to Japan, there's so much. When I went in 2000, there was so much more I could imbibe and take and make my own. Basically, pull out the stops from your ears, and and take away those, what are they called, blinkers. from your
Blinkers.
eyes. Nowadays, I forget a lot of words.
We all do.
Uh,
You're not alone.
oh, thank you.
You're not alone. Of all the awards that you have received, plenty, plenty, plenty. I remember the Padma Shri
Mm.
because we were together 1992. Two,
Two.
right. It need not be a very celebrated one. Is there one that is especially meaningful to you?
The one my guru, Mataji Vittamma, uh, gave, Lalita Kala Vittagar. So that means the most to me. It was from my guru. So it was, to me, it was not just an award, it was and is a blessing.
There's a lot of talk now, Chitra, about legacy, continuation of legacy. Um, you don't have a bloodline, in a sense, yes, to uh, to sort of pass on a legacy. And those with children, even like me, like mine, they're not interested in
Yes.
in what I do. So, as first generation professional artists, what are your thoughts on legacy?
Your legacy lives through not just your students, but also by those numerous artists who have been inspired by you and carry on in that spirit. After all, a Bani or a legacy is not just imitating or continuing a particular physicality of style. It is the continuum of a spirit, a philosophy, an attitude. And I think I, for instance, have always said Kamala was my Manasika guru. Now, I never learned from her. But that spirit, something of that is in me. Why, when I saw a particular Odissi dancer dancing, that spirit I took in. So everyone can carry on a legacy in different ways. But if we particularly want your legacy in totality to be continued, doesn't matter. Bharata's, the Bharataputra were not the putras of his loins. The Bharataputra were his Shishyas. Sorry, Shishyas. So your students will carry on the legacy. People whom you have inspired in different ways will carry on that legacy.
I want to thank you, Chitra Vishweshwaran, for the time, your ideas, your thoughts. I want to thank all of you for being a very warm audience.